Beneath the vast expanse of the Pacific, where silence reigns and shadows hide beneath the waves, there was once a hunter unlike any other. She was swift, fearless, and relentless, a submarine that carried with her the hopes of her crew and the silent prayers of a nation at war. The USS Wahoo was not just another submarine in the United States Navy during World War II. She was a legend in the making, a steel predator that struck terror into the hearts of the enemy and gave courage to those who fought alongside her. Yet, like so many legends, her story was destined to end in mystery, swallowed by the very sea she once ruled. The question that has haunted history since that fateful day is simple yet chilling. How could the most daring submarine of her time vanish without a trace? The year was 1943. The Pacific War was raging with ferocity, and the United States was locked in a desperate struggle against Imperial Japan. Control of the seas was not just a matter of pride, it was a matter of survival. Every convoy sunk, every ship destroyed, weakened the enemy's grip on the vast empire it had carved out with fire and blood. In this brutal chess game played on the open ocean, submarines were the invisible knights, striking unseen, vanishing before retribution could find them. Among them, one name rose above the rest: Wahoo. Commanded by the bold and controversial Lieutenant Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton, Wahoo quickly became the stuff of naval legend. Morton was no ordinary officer. He was brash, aggressive, and often disregarded the cautious tactics taught at the Naval Academy. To him, hesitation was weakness, and weakness had no place in a war where the enemy showed none. His partnership with Executive Officer Richard O'Kane, a man who would later carve his own legend aboard the USS Tang, created a lethal combination. Together, they turned Wahoo into one of the most feared submarines prowling the Pacific. On her early patrols, Wahoo hunted relentlessly, sinking transports, tankers, and warships, cutting lifelines that fed Japan's war machine. Reports of her victories spread through the fleet, inspiring other crews and striking fear into enemy captains. The Japanese began to whisper of a ghostly predator, a submarine that appeared without warning, struck with merciless precision, and disappeared into the dark waters. Wahoo's crew, though weary from endless danger, carried themselves with pride. They were not just sailors, they were brothers united by the steel hull around them and the daring spirit of their captain. But with every victory came greater risk. The seas grew more dangerous, Japanese escorts more aggressive, and the hunt for American submarines more desperate. The Wahoo, daring as she was also marked. Her reputation made her a target. The crew knew it. Every dive beneath the waves, every attack run against a convoy, carried the unspoken question: would they surface again? By the fall of 1943, Wahoo was preparing for her 7th war patrol. The mission was as ambitious as it was dangerous. Penetrate the Sea of Japan itself, the enemy's backyard, a place where few submarines dared to tread. The Sea of Japan was surrounded on all sides by hostile shores. If a submarine entered, escape was nearly impossible. It was a trap of geography and strategy. But Morton, true to his character, accepted the challenge without hesitation. If the enemy thought their inland sea was safe, Wahoo would prove them wrong. The patrol began with daring strikes. Reports later confirmed that Wahoo wreaked havoc on Japanese shipping, sinking multiple vessels, spreading chaos and fear where the enemy thought they were untouchable. Each torpedo launch was a message that no place was beyond reach, that no ocean was safe. But victories in war are often fleeting, and the higher one climbs, the steeper the fall becomes. In October of 1943, as Wahoo prepared to make her return journey, silence fell. No signals, no updates, no sightings. The submarine that had once roared with daring attacks vanished into the abyss. Days turned into weeks. Families of the crew waited anxiously, hoping for news, praying for a miracle. But none came. The Navy eventually declared her lost. For decades, no one knew what truly happened. Was she caught by depth charges? Did she strike a mine? Or did she go down fighting, taking her enemies with her to the bottom of the sea? The sea keeps its secrets well, and for generations, the story of Wahoo's final moments was a mystery etched in silence. Yet the memory of her crew lived on, men who had given everything, who had sailed into the most dangerous waters with unshakable resolve, and who had never returned. The silence after October 9, 1943, was deafening. For the families of the USS Wahoo's crew, every passing day without word brought heavier dread. Wives clutched letters that had arrived weeks earlier, parents prayed for telegrams that never came, and children waited for fathers who would not return. To them, silence was the cruelest weapon of war. The Navy could offer no answers. The Wahoo was simply gone. At first, there was hope. Sometimes submarines returned late, their radios damaged or their routes delayed. Some thought that Wahoo would surface triumphantly, battered but alive, like so many times before. But as days stretched into weeks, hope turned to heartbreak. By the end of 1943, the Wahoo was officially listed as lost with all hands, 79 men who had sailed into the Sea of Japan and never come back. For decades, the mystery deepened. No wreckage was found, no survivors, no confirmed eyewitnesses. Theories grew like shadows. Some believed the submarine had struck a mine in the narrow straits on her way home. Others argued she had been cornered by Japanese escorts and destroyed by depth charges. There were even whispers of tragic accidents, mechanical failure, or torpedo misfires. But without evidence, the truth remained buried beneath the waves. What was certain was that the Japanese Navy had been on alert. Their records, discovered years later, revealed that aircraft and patrols had reported sighting and attacking a submarine in the Sea of Japan around the time Wahoo went missing. One report described a submarine surfacing under air attack, only to be struck by bombs and forced back under, leaving behind an oil slick. Another claimed that depth charges had finished the job, silencing the intruder forever. These accounts, while chilling, matched too closely to the Wahoo's last known patrol to be ignored. And yet, even in loss, the legend of the Wahoo grew. Veterans spoke her name with reverence, remembering her daring patrols and the fearless command of Mush Morton. Young sailors heard her story and felt pride in following the path of men who had fought so boldly. The submarine that vanished had not been forgotten, she had become immortal in memory. For years, explorers and historians longed to solve the riddle. Where had she gone down? Could her final resting place ever be found? The Pacific, vast and merciless, guarded its secrets well. And so the decades slipped by, the world changed, and generations passed. But the name Wahoo still stirred hearts. Then, in 2006, more than 60 years after her disappearance, there was a breakthrough. Off the coast of northern Japan, divers and surveyors exploring the waters near La Perouse Strait discovered a wreck lying silently on the seabed. The hull was shattered, scarred by explosions. The number etched into the metal, though worn by time, was unmistakable. The USS Wahoo had been found. News of the discovery swept across the world. For the families of the crew, it was bittersweet. At last, after decades of unanswered questions, there was closure. Their fathers, brothers, and sons had not simply vanished. They lay in a steel tomb beneath the waves, together as they had lived, bound forever by duty and sacrifice. The site was declared a war grave, sacred and undisturbed, a place where the lost finally found peace. The story of Wahoo is more than just the tale of a submarine. It is a story of men who lived with courage in the face of overwhelming danger, of a commander whose boldness defied convention, and of a ship that carried the hopes of her nation into the darkest waters of war. Her loss reminds us of the cost of freedom, the price paid not in numbers or statistics, but in lives, real, breathing men who gave everything. The day the USS Wahoo vanished beneath the waves was a day of sorrow, but it was also a day that sealed her immortality. She may have been lost, but she was never defeated. And as long as her story is told, as long as we remember the men who sailed her, she will never truly sink. The ocean may have taken her body, but her spirit sails on, in every submarine that dives, in every sailor who remembers, and in every heart moved by the tale of the submarine that refused to be forgotten. The Pacific still holds many secrets, but the mystery of the Wahoo is no longer one of them. She has been found, her silence broken, her sacrifice honored. In the vast theater of World War II, amidst the chaos of fleets and battles, she stands apart. Not for how she was lost, but for how she lived, bold, fearless, and unyielding. And perhaps, that is the truest victory of all.